Hello, advanced English learners. Welcome back. I'm joined today by the one and only Greg. Thank you for joining me, Greg, for another English conversation. We do these for you so that you have enough practice with listening comprehension, hearing native English speakers speak at a relatively normal pace. We're not really slowing things down. We're trying to keep it natural. And that gives you also an opportunity to work on your own pronunciation, to hear connected speech, to see where we naturally place emphasis in words, and all of the, amazing ways of communicating, really. And that being said, you also get some new words, new phrases, new expressions, so that you can use them in your real world applications of English. So that's super cool.
Yeah.
And today's episode is all about something that is very integral to American culture. We hear this a lot. You might have heard of this concept. So we're going to talk about a bucket list. Yeah.
Good old bucket list.
Exactly. All right, so let's get into it. All right, so let's first define what a bucket list is. So I'll share my definition and then you can share yours. So a bucket list is essentially a life list, things that you have on your list that you want to do during your time on Earth. So anything that, involves maybe traveling to certain places or learning a new skill or trying out a cool experience. It's usually based on experiences in my understanding and my experience of it. What about you?
When I think of a bucket list, I just think of like a short list of things I want to do within some kind of time constraint.
Interesting. Okay.
Right? And so, for example, when we were moving out of New York City, we put together a bucket list.
Oh, that's right.
All the restaurants we wanted to go to, all the parks we wanted to go to, all the museums we wanted to go to, the people we wanted to see. We, of course, did almost none of it.
I know. So it's still sitting somewhere in a digital file.
Exactly. But that was our sort of leaving New York bucket list. And then when we got to the new place, we had an arrival, like things we wanted to see when we got there. So arrival bucket list.
Yeah.
But you're right as well. Like you can have life bucket lists. Like there's places like countries you want to visit before you die. There's like, things you want to try, things you want to cook, right? Or skills you want to develop.
Absolutely. Like I checked one off my list recently. It was, do you know what this is?
No, I'd love to hear it. Oh, wait. Let me see if I can guess.
It was something that I ate.
Yes.
Okay, do you know?
I bet it is a seafood?
Yes.
It was oysters.
That's right.
Got it.
So I was terrified for the longest time. I've been in multiple situations where, living abroad and being back in the US, people just offering me oysters to eat. And every time I would say no. And a lot of these times it was like the place to have the oysters. And I'd just be like, no, thank you, politely decline. I had this unrealistic fear of them. I don't know exactly. And then recently, just a couple weeks ago, I was like, you know what? Why not? I'm going to try. So I put that on my bucket list now and I just checked it off because I did it, why not?
So you added it and then removed it quickly.
Well, yeah, in a way. Like it wasn't something that I had intentionally said, I'm going to put this on my bucket list. But it was sort of like in the moment, I was like, this is pretty cool. I've tried and I've tried
removed
oysters.
not the word. You checked it off your list.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you enjoyed it, right?
I did. Yeah. So a lot of these can also be rooted in this idea of like facing a fear you might have. Maybe a food you want to try, but you're also scared to try, or like, there could be a delicacy in a place that you travel to that maybe doesn't sound as appetizing to you, but then when you try it and you let go of your fear of that type of flavor or taste or consistency of the food, then you end up enjoying it.
Totally. Yeah. And, I often find I use bucket list in response to something that someone tells me, right?
Okay.
So they might say, oh, I just went to, Ecuador. And I'm like, oh, Ecuador. Yeah, that's on my bucket list of places to visit.
Sure.
Right. Or they tell me about a restaurant they went to, be like, ooh, I should add that to my bucket list.
Totally.
Right. And so in that case, those are sort of vague, general bucket lists, not any specific one. But it's a nice way to show people that you're interacting with that, you know, you're into it as well, and that you're going to add. Or another one is like movies to watch or books to read, right? You can have bucket lists for any of those things.
Totally, absolutely. It's just anything that you want to try or do or experience at some point between now and, you know, the end, right?
Yeah.
So it's like something to just try to aspire to do. Like it could be a skill that you want to learn. It could be, you know, maybe you want to learn how to cook. That could be something. Maybe you want to learn how to drive. Maybe you want to learn how to fly. Maybe you want to go, what is that? Skydiving that a lot of people like?
Scuba diving.
Scuba diving. I'm terrified of
both of those.
Scuba diving and skydiving. So I don't think
no diving for you.
I don't think those are going to be making my bucket list anytime soon.
Yeah.
But hey, you know, we all have our own bucket lists, I guess.
A quick question. Do you know where the bucket and bucket list comes from?
I actually think it's like from the medieval times. And I think it's just something that they were using at that time. It has to do with like, well, this is a little bit, not so great, but like an executioner and that kind of thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Gosh. Wow,
Yeah.
That's intense.
So
I had no idea.
Yeah, I did a little digging, and that's what I came up with.
Well, to be fair, it's oftentimes
great.
those are hypothetical, right? Or they're like speculative.
Yeah.
It's not for sure that that's where it came from.
I mean, the Middle Ages, so that's, you know, several hundred years ago, and who knows if the documentation was right. I have a feeling somebody just sat down one day and said, let's just come up with this term. And you know what I like to think of it? Like the way I thought bucket lists worked was, you know, you have a bucket and you have all these like strips of paper and you write down something like, for example, oh, I want to learn how to garden. And then you just crumple it up and you throw it in your bucket, you know? So it's like,
all right, let's go with that.
That's my take on that. Fair enough. Yeah, sometimes you don't want to know the origin of a term or a word. I've learned.
Or it can be taken for something that oftentimes things from history, deep in history, are quite dark because
I know, it's true.
You know, we have problems in today's world, but honestly, across the board, things were a lot worse before we were born. Like, and back in earlier parts of history, we sometimes reminisce, like, oh, I'd love to live in the Middle Ages, but actually, if you really like do the math, things were stinky back then. We didn't have antibiotics. We didn't have running water. You know, we certainly didn't have the internet. Right. So it's easy to romanticize the past, but it was kind of a rough place. And so it's no surprise that a lot of these terms that we use casually now have their origins in things that are quite intense by modern standards. It's
so true. So yeah, it's something to keep in mind if you do go down the rabbit hole of looking
etymology.
Exactly. And you know, etymology is cool in a lot of ways and is very empowering, especially when you're doing some vocab acquisition, because the roots of the words can be so intertwined with other languages that can help you just remember those words, use those words, understand those words. So I personally really like looking up the etymology of words. Just don't be surprised if you come across sort of a morbid meaning, you know, here and there. So something to keep in mind. Just take that with a grain of salt.
For you etymologists out there.
Exactly. So do you have anything specific on your bucket list that you feel like is worthy
other than time
mentioning?
traveling to the Middle Ages?
Totally.
Yeah, actually, something that's related to that. I'd love to go to a medieval fair. Right?
Yeah, like a Renaissance
fair.
Well, that's coming up. We have a Renaissance fair
that
we have been invited to. We just haven't had the time to go. You know, I went to, so for those of you listening and watching, a Renaissance fair I had never heard of before this 6th grade school trip that we were taken on. In 6th grade, we went to a medieval fair because we were studying the Middle Ages in history at that point in time. And it was really cool. It was a Renaissance fair, and they were fully decked out in the costumes. Decked out means to be like fully, you know, dressed from head to toe in that costume. And, you know, they had food that was presumably from that era.
Yeah, it's basically a celebration of everything from that era. And there's a lot of people there who are dressed up and role-playing people from that era. They're doing things from that era, right? Classically, you have jousting.
Oh, yeah. So we watched jousting. So that's when you get on horses and you have a spear. Well, it's not really a spear, but it's a wooden...
It's basically a spear. It's called a javelin.
A javelin, right. with that, which
It's a
is
spear
now,
that you don't throw. It's a spear that
Yeah.
you hold sort of under your arm.
and javelin is a track and field event, and you actually do throw
That one you
that
do
stick,
throw.
which is really cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. But anyway, so the jousting is the real thing that they're doing in these fairs. So they're all over the U.S. You can find them, more so in the countryside. So if you're in a city, you might have to drive to it. And it's typically around the fall season.
Mm-hmm.
So you might want to check that out if you are someone who is interested in, doing something like that. It's a fun weekend activity. Gather some friends.
Exactly. Yeah. I love TV shows that are set in the past with all the costumes. And so to do that in real life, I think would be really cool.
It'd be really cool. Would you dress up and go, or would you just be like a
I think
bystander?
the first time I went, I would like to just be the observer.
Okay. So
And
in
then-
your 2000s clothes, what did we say? 2020s clothes?
Yeah, 2020s.
That's so
2020s.
strange. Doesn't it sound weird?
Yeah. The 20s. We live in the 20s now.
Yeah, but not the 1920s.
We live in the 20s.
Sure. Okay, let's go with that.
Yeah. So I'll be decked in my 20s regalia.
Okay.
But I'll be appreciating all the really what I'm most excited about are the suits of armor.
Oh, yeah.
I love
that's
suits of
cool.
armor. I love the broadswords. Yeah, so that'll be a lot of fun, I think.
Yeah.
That's on my bucket list. What's on your bucket list?
Oh, it's hard. So one of the ones that we checked off was the safari. But I'm going to be bold and say another safari. In a different location. I think that would be really cool. It was
That's
just
really
such a
cool.
magical experience. Like,
Yeah.
you experience nature in a way that I've never experienced nature. It's just surreal. So
Totally
I would
agree.
say
Yeah, you make a connection
that,
with the
yeah.
animals and it's such a special experience.
it's really cool. So I would say another safari, to be honest.
That's a great item.
And then I have a bunch of skills that I want to learn and things that I want to do and things that I want to learn. So it's just, I don't know if I would say that's on my bucket list or is it on my life goals list. So, I think the idea of a bucket list is just to make what you will of it and just have some goals in mind,
Well, I think that's actually a good contrast. Life
Yeah.
goals I think of as like there's a little more gravity around
Yeah.
those, a little more import.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas a bucket list is sort of more like fun, kind of like would be nice stuff. Yeah.
Definitely. Like learning how to cook certain dishes, maybe,
Yep.
that you love to eat. So, what's on your bucket list? Share that with us. I'm curious. Greg's curious. So, share that with us. Maybe, we can get some ideas going. Let's share that with the community, get that community vibe. I get so many comments every day from all of you, and it just puts a smile on my face. And I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I can speak from my heart. I don't know about Greg. Greg, you too.
Yes, deeply.
Greg's heart too.
Deeply
And
grateful.
it's really cool to see you engaging with the content the way you do, to, see how it's helping you improve, helping you just come to new realizations, help you check things off your own bucket list, so to speak. And we just want to keep that up. So we really appreciate your support, your encouragement, and we're really excited to share with you the next stage of our journey on Advanced English and also Explearning, our communication channel. So to get that news that we're going to share very soon, just make sure that you're subscribed to the newsletter because I will be sharing it first there. That's where you're going to hear about it first. So definitely just go to advancedenglish.co. You can also go to explearning.co. and just sign up for the newsletter. Many of you probably are already signed up for that. It's free, so it's a cool resource that you want to take advantage of. And I will be sharing very exciting news. I'm so excited about it. And I
You
will,
and me both.
yes, so be sure to stay tuned. All right, so that being said, thank you so much again for your support, and we will see you here very, very soon for another Advanced English. Bye for now.